So today we will speak about the intelligent design. And this model of combination, I wouldn't say combination, it's very probably, it would be not correct to say that this is a combination of creationism and the theory of evolution. On the contrary, the representatives of the intelligent design, they try to speak something against the evolution theory. And actually, when you read the presentation of this theory, they speak that actually this argument about the intelligent design we can find very, very early. Already among the church fathers, they already spoke about the intelligent design in nature. So when we look at nature, when we look at some complexity of living creatures, so we can understand that it is impossible that such kind of complexity could come to existence only because of blind chance. So the theory of intelligent design attempts to explain the observed complexity and information-rich structures found in living systems and other features of life and the universe. Creationism defends a particular reading of the biblical book of Genesis, typically one that asserts that God created the earth in 6 24-hour periods a few thousand years ago. In contrast, the theory of intelligent design does not offer an interpretation of the book of Genesis, nor does it posit a theory about the length of the biblical days of creation or the age of the earth. Consequently, intelligent design proponents may have a variety of positions on such issues. So what does it mean? Mostly the people who are adherents of this position are scientists, scientists who believe in God, but also scientists who believe in science. And they actually say that when we look at our world, it is clear that world couldn't emerge just because of evolution. And this is not an interpretation of the Bible, because they are scientists and they are not interested in the interpretation, theological interpretation of the Bible. So actually their main argument or their main thesis is that the complexity of the world requires a designer. So it should be somebody who made up everything, who did everything. But they do not care about how it was done, how it was made. So that is why in this theory, all other theistic evolution ideas could be present, because they do not care about how long were the days of creation. Was it done in 6 days or 6 billion years? So they do not care about this. The main thing that they want to emphasize, there is an intelligent designer behind our world. Intelligent design is an evidence-based scientific theory about life's origin and development that challenges strictly materialistic view of evolution. The theory of intelligent design holds that there are telltale features of living systems and the universe. For example, the digital code in DNA, the miniature circuits and machines and in cells, and the fine-tuning of the laws and constants of physics that are best explained by an intelligent cause rather than an indirect material process. So now one of the main arguments that they speak about is the structure of DNA. Actually, now when the scientists tried to understand this DNA, RNA, they understood that this is not much about like biology, it is also about information. Because in one DNA, all the information about, so in my DNA, for example, all information about myself, there is all information about myself. And most of the arguments are taken from from the DNA. So they also speak about the theory of information, and they try to apply theory of information to understanding of the world. And according to the theory of information, for example, if we have, in order to make something new, we need additional new information. And this information is possible to get if we use only the evolutionary theory of evolution. So, for example, no new information is added to the DNA in order to make a new, something new creature in the process. So that is why they deny any kind of macro evolution. Also, they usually quote Newton, who used to say, for example, that the laws of rotating of the celestial planets and everything in the space, the laws are identified by the scientists. They know how it is, how all the planets are rotating around the sun, and what he says that actually these laws doesn't allow, but what Newton said, that actually the position of every planet is so, how to say, so sharply, so tuned. So if something just change a little bit the position of one planet or of one celestial body, so in this case, everything will be ruined. And he said that actually the laws of the physics explain how the celestial bodies are rotating in the space, but they don't explain, they cannot explain how they get their position on this on their places, because everything is very, very so exactly done, so it is impossible to do everything without a creator. And of course, yes, the evolutionists usually speak about the mutations that provide some additional information, but everybody knows, for example, that mutations cannot be positive. In most of the cases, all mutations are negative. And as they usually say, because the representatives of the theory of evolution usually say that everything happened during the long period of time, but they say on the contrary, long period of time just play against the evolution, because during the long period of time everything is actually coming to entropy, to chaos. So our world is directed to the chaos, not to the order. So there are many arguments that they can post. For example, yes, the importance of the information. No natural process, including natural selection and mutations, can cause information to arise in non-living matter to form the first living cell. So they say that according to the law of information or principle of information, it is just impossible. Nor can those processes create new genetic information to transform that first single-celled creature into all the diverse plants, animals, and people, no matter how much time is allowed. In fact, as Sanford argues, time is the enemy of evolution, because over time, harmful mutations are increasing in the DNA of all creatures. All scientific and non-scientific investigations of the world show that information doesn't come from matter, but from an intelligent mind, and life comes from life. So they have a lot of arguments to say that evolution is impossible, and somebody, the creator, should stand behind our world. But some of the I wouldn't say weaknesses, because it is not about the weaknesses, but the theory doesn't challenge the idea of evolution defined as either change over time or common ancestry, but it does dispute the Darwinian idea that the cause of biological change is wholly blind and indirect. Therefore, neither theistic evolution nor billions of years of history for the universe and Earth are ruled out. Only atheistic evolution is rejected. So this is like a kind of critics of this approach. So what does it mean? Actually, it means that, as I said, the representatives or adherents of this position, they do not interpret the Bible. They just want to say something based on the scientific evidences. And because of this, because they do not care about how the world was created, they just want to emphasize that there was an intelligent designer behind. That is why they can entertain any position and accommodate any position. Like, for example, it could be theistic evolution, when God started everything and everything developed by itself. Or, but theistic evolution may be less possible. But it could be progressive creationism. It's also possible to accommodate in this theory. Okay, principally this is the end that I want to tell you about the intelligent design. And now, do you have any questions or any comments about that?
So do we have any other, because where do we belong as a church? Because I almost thought we are in intelligent design, but now that they are concluding that
No. We are not. We do not share the position of the intelligent design. Actually, what I would like to say, that we agree with their arguments.
Yes.
We agree with the arguments. It is impossible to create the world without a creator. But they do not go further. They just say that there is a creator. The world is impossible without the creator. That's all. And that is why they do not care about many other issues about which we care, like the day, the duration of the process, were those 6 days literal or not literal, and some other issues. So that is why we cannot say that we are on the position of the intelligent design. Our position as a church is like young earth creationism. So the first one. This is our position, maybe with some slight modifications. But this position is very, very close to our understanding of creation. But definitely we not in the earth creationism, because they actually, or progressive creationism, because they say that God used evolution as the process, and the day of creation are not literal days. And of course, we cannot agree with evolutionary creation, because they also, it is like theistic evolution. They say that God just started everything, and everything developed by itself. And like the Pope said, that only that the body of man derived from monkey, from animals, but the soul was created by God. So we cannot agree with this approach either. So that is why our position is young earth creationism. And this is our, I wouldn't say official position, but yeah, most probably this is our official position. Any other questions?
Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we are following gradually.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
thank you,
let us come to our today's topic, and this is about ancient Near East ancient Near East accounts on creation. And today we will try to discuss, if not all of them, but at least the most important ancient Near East accounts or stories about the creation. And I would like to start with this slide. It happened in November 1872. George Smith, he was English Assyriologist. By the way, very, very talented guy. He finished school very early and he knew several of these Akkadian languages. And one day he discovered a story, and it was a Gilgamesh epic. And he discovered a story which was very similar to the flood story described in the book of Genesis. When he publicized his discovery, it was clear that the story that is written in Gilgamesh epic about the flood is very similar to the story written in the Bible. But this Gilgamesh epic was dated much earlier than the biblical account of creation. So, for example, they read this story from. They found the story in the library of Ashurbanipal, and of course, library of Ashurbanipal, it is quite late. It is just the 7th century BC. But some fragments of the story were found in some other places, and it became clear that the story is as old as 3rd millennium BC, like 2,200 years or even earlier. So in this case, it became clear that the story is very, very old. And many scholars assumed that because the story of creation, Babylonian story of creation, is much older, and because it resembles very much the story written in the book of Genesis, in this case, the conclusion that they do is that most probably biblical writers borrowed this material from ancient Near East stories. Furthermore, it was well known that these stories were circulated very wide and they were known in many, many, many places. So that is why it was very, very possible conclusion. So what happened to this guy, George Smith, afterwards? So everybody was so excited about this discovery. So they even funded those archaeological societies, even funded the new excavation or new archaeological trip to the Mesopotamia, and he went there, and they found also some other very important epics. But unfortunately, this guy died in 4 years after his main discovery. He went to Syria and he got dysentery or something like that. And because of poor medical service at that time, at that place, they didn't save him, and he died in Syria in 1876. So, but what he found is very, very interesting. And since that time, there was a very common tendency among scholars when they speak about biblical accounts. They believe that the biblical accounts is based upon some other ancient Near East stories, especially when we speak about the story of creation and story about the flood. So now, as yesterday we agreed, we will divide our task among themselves, and somebody will prepare a short introduction to the Gilgamesh epic, So the content of the epic and some parallels between epic and biblical account. And the first one, probably we need to speak about Enuma Elish. So who was responsible for Enuma Elish? Pastor Biama? Pastor Bioma, it seems to me you were the one. Oh,
Okay, Prof.
yes.
Yeah, I'll present first.
Do you have a presentation or just orally?
Okay, orally, but I can
Orally.
still share some things on the screen.
Okay, so in this case, I will stop my sharing so that you can share your screen.
Okay, Prof. I hope my screen can be seen.
Yes,
Of course, yes,
we can see it.
All right. I was asked to share something on the Enuma Elish creation epic. Its origin is Mesopotamia, and the name Enuma is derived from the first lines, meaning when on high. That is, Enuma Elish means when on high, and it dates as old as 1750 BCE. And the story is seen as one of the oldest, if not the oldest in the world, and it concerns the births of gods and the creation of the universe and human beings. The beginning, there was only one undifferentiated water that swirled in chaos. So out of this chaos, waters were divided into two, the sweet fresh water known as the god Apsu, and the salt bitter one known as the god Tiamat. And these gods got married together and gave birth to other younger gods. Then as they grew up, the younger gods were extremely loud and troubled the sleep of Apsu at night and would not allow him to walk in the day. So Apsu became annoyed and sought advice from his friend Vizier Mumu, and he decides to kill the younger gods. Tiamat, their mother, heard of this plan and told the plan to her elder son Enki or Ea. Then he puts Apsu to sleep and kills him. From the remains of Apsu, Enki made his own home. When Tiamat saw that they have killed her husband, she became enraged and wanted to kill all her sons. So he consulted with another god called Kingu, who advised her to make war and kill the younger gods. Then she gave Kingu the tablets of destiny that gave him the control to rule over the gods and control their fates. Then in the war that came between Tiamat and her sons, they fought. Enki and the other gods fought against Tiamat until one of the younger gods, Marduk, emerged as a champion, and through him they defeated Kingu and killed Tiamat. They shot her with an arrow and split her in two from the eyes, and from her flew toward us the Tigris and the Euphrates River, Out of the corpse of Tiamat, Marduk created the heavens and the earth and appointed other gods to bind Tiamat's 11 creatures. Then, after a while, to make his victory sure, Marduk consulted with a god, Ea, the god of wisdom, and they created man called Lulu from the blood of Kingu, who instructed Tiamat to fight them. And they made man Mungu to help them maintain stability in the world and to give the gods time to rest away out of the disturbances of the world. In comparison with the Genesis account of creation, we see that Enuma Elish appeared to be earlier than the Genesis story of creation. This can be maybe because of when Moses began to write the story. That of the Enuma Elish had been there before. Then, interestingly, the title of the book of Genesis came from the first line of the story as the title of the epic Enuma Elish went on high. Then, beginning of both stories saw the earth or universe chaotic. In the case of the earth, the Genesis, the earth was without form and void. Then later on, there were division, water divided from water in the two stories. In Genesis, the waters were divided between waters above and waters beneath. Then waters also were divided into trees, into rivers and seas, and gave birth to dry land. Then, in the case of Enuma Elish, water were divided into Apsu, the sweet water, and the Tiamat, the bitter water. Then God, in Genesis account, acts upon the water or upon the creation. But the divided waters in the Enuma Elish become gods themselves, which marry and give birth to younger gods. In the book of Genesis, creation was orderly, sequentially designed in evaluated harmony. But in the Enuma Elish, creation was not planned. It came up as what do we do to fight our enemies? Then out of that war, Marduk creates heaven and earth out of Tiamat's corpse. Then in Genesis, God exists eternally. In Enuma Elish, gods can be killed, they can be given birth, they can also marry. Another one that I didn't differentiate or compare is many gods are involved in Enuma Elish. Also in Genesis, God appears in the plural form. Elohim appears in the noun common, masculine, plural, absolute. There was also similarity when man was made. Genesis, God consulted other persons of the Godhead. In Enuma Elish, Marduk consults with Ea and decides to create man. Genesis, that is now the differences. Man, Adam, was created from dust of the earth. In the Enuma Elish, Lulu, the first man, was created from the blood of God, Kingu. Then, lastly, there's also a difference. Adam was given dominion to rule over the earth. Lulu was created to help the gods in maintaining order and checking chaos so that the gods can be set free and allowed to rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Does anybody want to add anything? Okay, so now my purpose for this class is not only for us to be acquainted with the brief description of the story, but I also would like us to touch the story itself. Because do you see, we are on the PhD program, and this level implies that we not only use the secondary sources, but we also should use the primary sources. And of course, we cannot read in Akkadian language, but at least we can do it in the translation and try to analyze the story in the translation.
Prof, according to this statement you've just made,
yes,
about primary sources.
Yes.
I found a lot of materials about the Gilgamesh epic until I was even confused. I didn't even know how to now choose which one is primary and which one is secondary.
No, the primary source is the text of the epic. That's all. This is the primary source. Everything else is the secondary.
Oh, then I must have delved into secondary sources all along, because I read up to 50 pages.
Yeah, there are a lot of written on this, because you see, since the time it was found, so it was studied very carefully, and there are many literature on Gilgamesh epic and on many other issues related to this epic. Yeah, and I remember even there was one archaeologist. It seems to me he is not an Adventist, but what is interesting, he got his archaeology degree from Andrews University. And this is about the Gilgamesh epic. And I remember once I came across his article. Actually, this article was not published in the scholarly journal, but he had his own website. So he published his own research on his website. And in this research, in this article, he argued actually that Gilgamesh, what is written, that the Gilgamesh is a historical figure. It is a historical character. And he even tried to find in the Bible who is this Gilgamesh. And his idea was the Gilgamesh is the same as biblical Nimrod. And the name Nimrod, we couldn't, according to his idea, the name Nimrod, we shouldn't understand as a proper name, but, or maybe this is the proper name, but it comes from the root marad. And I don't remember exactly what this root means, but he somehow made parallels between what Nimrod did and what Gilgamesh did. But of course, it is very speculative, but it's very interesting. Okay, so now you understood, yes? The primary sources are the original sources. I mean, the text of the Numa Elish, the text of Gilgamesh epic, and some other epics. These are the primary sources. The secondary sources is everything that is written about that. Yes.
Yeah, I got the translation of the poem of the Numa.
It's very old. It's very long. Yes.
Seven tablet is very long. That's why I just gave a brief of the story.
Yes, I understand you very well. So it's okay. It's okay. So, but I just want us right now not to be satisfied with the story, but I would like us to touch a little bit the primary source, the text of the epic.
Okay, Prof.
So now let's do it.
Okay, Prof. Thank you.
So Enuma Elish. So you are right. You already gave this information. This is also known as Seven Tablets of Creation. Is the Mesopotamian creation myth. whose title is derived from the opening lines, when on high. By the way, it's very interesting in the continuation, when on high. So what happened when on high? All of the tablets containing the myth found in Ashur-Kish, Ashurbanipal's library at Nineveh, and other places, and they are dated quite long, and you are right, they are dated probably about 18th century BC. So let us just discuss a little bit the main characters of the story, because story is presented for us, and there are some characters. And these two first primary characters are Apsu and Tiamat. And Apsu, one of the two primordial Mesopotamian gods, is known as the begetter of all other gods. And he dwells with his consort or his wife Tiamat before anything else exists. And it is true that these two gods, Tiamat and Apsu, were presented as two types of water. Apsu is a fresh water and Tiamat is a salt water. Tiamat is also known as a maker or creator. As a deity, she is associated with water and with house. By the way, this name Tiamat is also very, very important. Why? Because many scholars, when they saw parallels between the Numa Elish epic and Genesis account of creation, they assumed that the phrase tohu vavohu could derive, or it has some similarity with the Tiamat. So, for example, in Akkadian, it is Tiamat. In Hebrew, it is Tohu. You understand? And because Tiamat was associated with the house, primordial house. So that is why they automatically started to understand this expression Tohu vavohu, v'haaretz hayta tohu vaohu, as an expression of a house. So the land was in chaotic state before the creation. So that is why, for example, this active gap theory, do you remember it? Spread by Scofield Bible. In this active gap theory, there is an idea that God created everything good, and after that, everything came back to house, so became a house. Because Tohu Vavohu is associated with the Tiamat, and Tiamat means god of house, or something like that. But of course, we cannot see about any of such connection, really connection. So this is the genealogy of those gods. So we can see that Tiamat and Apsu, when they mix together their waters, from those waters, some other gods appeared. This Mammu or Mummu, the vizier of Apsu, Anshar and Kishar, from them Anu and Antu were born, and they were also like sister and brother, and like husband and a wife. And from them was born, and and his consort or his wife Damkina, and from them Marduk was born. So this is the genealogy that came to Marduk. So Marduk, he was one of the, not one, but he was the main deity in Babylon. So Mummu is Apsu vizier. He advises Apsu to destroy his and Tiamat's offsprings, even after Tiamat angrily rejects this idea. Consequently, just make him to sleep, and after that he killed him, so he disappeared. Nudimut, this is another name for air. Air occurs even often. It depends where, what kind of stories. If it is in Babylon, it seems to me it is Nudimut, but in other epics it has another name, Air. So is begotten of Anu, originally a Sumerian deity. He is also sometimes known as Enki or Enlil. And there are a lot of confusion here because the same gods who have different names, or in one epics they are different, they have different names. In some epics they're the same, like identity. So some confusion is here. So he's known also as Enki or Enlil. His name is like superior of his forefathers, profound of understanding and strong of arms. However, when Anshar sends him to confront Tiamat in her rage, he shrinks from the task and encourages Marduk to go instead, setting the stage for Marduk's ascendancy among the gods. Yeah, so we'll speak about it later. So the same. And Damkina is the consort, lover of air, and the mother of Marduk. And Marduk, of course, he's important one, sometimes called Bel. Marduk is begotten by his father Ea, and Damkina inside the dwelling Apsu. So do you remember, as Pastor Abioma told, when Ea killed Apsu, they made from Apsu their own house or their own home. So that is why everybody is in Apsu. From his birth, Marduk is superior to all other gods. He has 4 all-perceiving eyes, 4 enormous ears, and lips that blaze forth fire. As a deity, he is associated with storms. Marduk steps forward to confront Tiamat. In Kingu is Tiamat's consort. After Apsu's slaying, Tiamat appoints him commander of her army and grants him the tablets of destiny. After Marduk defeats Tiamat in battle, however, he quickly wrests the tablet from Kingu. For his role in the battle, Kingu is later bound and killed, his blood used to create humanity. So in the beginning, the plot, Pastor Biom actually told you, I just repeat very quickly. In the beginning, there was only undifferentiated water swirling in house. And now I would like just pause for a while and let me open at the beginning of this story, how it is written in the original. And it's interesting. Just a minute, please. So when the heavens above did not exist and earth beneath had not come into being. So when the heavens above, this is Enuma Elish. And this expression is very similar like creation ex nihilo. So when there was no heavens and there was no earth. But this phrase could be understood differently, and we need a separate interpretation for these things. When the heavens above did not exist and the earth beneath had not come into being. So actually, do you see afterwards, we can see that Marduk creates everything, but he also assigns the role of gods. So every god is assigned a role, like for example, he's the god of waters, he's the god of sun, he's the god of something else. So there was no gods, and it looks like some of the cosmogonies of the ancient Near East, they were not so much interested in creation, like assigning the role to gods. So if there is a god of sun, so there is a sun. If there is no god of sun, there is no sun. But it's also, I just wanted to pay attention to this fact that it starts when the heavens above did not exist. So it looks like it speaks about the creation not creation from nothing, but before everything was created. Okay, let us come back to the presentation. So out of this swirl, the water is divided into sweet fresh waters known as god Apsu and salty bitter water, the goddess Tiamat. Once differentiated, the union of these two entities gave birth to the young gods. These young gods, however, were extremely loud, and this idea you can find again in the Atrahasis epic and some other epics as well. So about the loud gods, and or loud people, troubling the sleep of Apsu at night and distracting him from his work by day. Upon the advice of his vizier, Apsu decides to kill the young gods. Tiamat, hearing of this plan, warns her eldest son Enki. So first of all, Tiamat didn't accept this plan. He was very angry with both Apsu and Mumu about that. But later on, they decided to do it anyway. So that is why Tiamat let it snow to her son Enki. And he puts Apsu to sleep and kills him. And from his remains, he made his home. Tiamat, once the support of younger gods, now is enraged that they have killed her mate. She consults with the god Kingu, who advises her to make war on the young gods. And Tiamat rewards Kingu with the tablets of destiny. And with Kingu as her champion, Tiamat summons the forces of chaos and creates 11 horrible monsters to destroy her children. So now Ea and the younger gods fight against Tiamat, but actually they cannot do anything. And Ea comes back from this fight and actually complains. And he says that Tiamat has some spells, knows some spells against which I cannot do anything. And finally, he encouraged Marduk to fight. And Marduk was also a very, very interesting god, because he didn't want to fight before he secured the promise of the gods, so that they will pronounce him as the prime god, as the supreme god of everybody. And they agreed, they do this. And after that, he killed Kingu and Tiamat. And from Tiamat, they tried to do the creation. So from her body, everything was created. After the gods have finished praising him for his great victory and the art of his creation, Marduk consults with the god Ea and decides to create human beings from the remains of the gods. And Kingu is charged as guilty and killed, and from his blood, Ea creates Lulu, the first man to be a helper of gods in the eternal task of maintaining order and keeping house at bay. Now, let us try to read the text of the how actually in the epic the creation is described. So he split her, Tiamat, into two like a dried fish. So do you see the creation also described as splitting? So he split her, Tiamat, like a dry fish. One half of her he set up and stretched out as the heavens. He stretched the skin and appointed a watch, with the instruction not to let her waters escape. He crossed over the heavens, surveyed the celestial parts, and adjusted them to match the Apsu Nidumud's abode. So Apsu is not a god now, but it is a house of Enki. Bel measured the shape of the Apsu and set up Eshara, a replica of Esgala. In Esgala, Eshara, which he had built, and the heavens, he settled in the shrines, Anu and Lil and Ea. So do you see what is Marduk doing? Everybody assigns some role in the universe. He fashioned heavenly station for the great gods and set up constellations, the patterns of the stars. So do you see he creates stars So the creation of stars is depicted. He appointed the year, marked off divisions, and set up 3 stars each for the 12th month. After he had organized the year, he established the heavenly station of Nibiru to fix the stars' intervals. So do you see he organizes time, like 12 month, he organized a year, and he established some heavenly station to fix stars' intervals, that none should transgress or be slothful. He fixed the heavenly stations of Enlil and Ea with it. Gates he opened on both sides, and put strong bolts at the left and the right. He placed the heights of heaven in her Tiamat's belly. So this is how the creation of the world is described. He created Nannar, entrusting to him the night. He appointed him as the jewel of the night to fix the days. And month by month, without ceasing, he elevated him with the crown. So here it says how he created the moon, saying, shine over the land at the beginning of the month, resplendent with horns to fix 6 days. On the 7th day, the crown will be half size. So this is exactly about the moon. Yeah. On the 15th day, halfway through each month, stand in opposition. When Shamash, the god of sun, sees you on the horizon, diminish in the proper stage and shine backwards. So here it is described the phases of the moon. On the 29th day, draw near to the path of Shamash. On the 30th day, stand in conjunction and rival Shamash. So most probably the new moon is described when the moon is not seen. He opened the abyss, and it was sated with water. From her 2 eyes, he let the Euphrates and Tigris flow. He blocked her nostrils, but left, it's not clear, not everything remained. He heaped up the distant mountains on her breasts. He bored wells to channel the springs. He twisted her tail and wove it into the Durmahu. So I just came across one article when one author tries to find parallel with this phrase, he twisted her tail, with some expression in Isaiah chapter 13. And he actually said that there are some connection between these 2 passages. But of course, it's also very, very speculative. But I just mention it because I want to show that actually many scholars try to find some parallels between ancient Near accounts of something in the Bible. Now, 61, he set up her crotch, it wedged up the heavens. Thus the half of her he stretched out and made it firm as the earth. So do you see, this is also an idea that the firmament is supposed to be firm. So he stretched it somehow, the heavens should be firm. After he had finished his work inside Tiamat, he spread his net and let it right out. He surveyed the heavens and the earth. So it looks like now Tiamat became, from Tiamat he made this dome of heaven and made also the earth as well. Beneath the celestial parts, whose floor I made firm, I will build a house to be my luxurious abode. Within it I will establish its shrine, I will found my chamber and establish my kingship. When you come up from the Apsu to make a decision, this will be your resting place before the assembly. When you descend from heaven to make a decision, this will be your resting place before the assembly. So just pay attention to this detail. When God finished creating everything, he rested. And do you see here, we have a similar idea. when Marduk finished creating the world, but remember that man has not been created yet. So Marduk also is interested in building a house for himself, and this is house for rest. When you descend from heaven to make a decision, this will be your resting place before the assembly. I shall call its name Babylon, the homes of the great gods. Within it, we will hold a festival that will be the evening festival. The gods, his fathers, heard the speech of this, and they said, with regard to all that your hands have made, who has with regards to the earth that your hands have made, who has in Babylonian, as you have named it, put our resting place forever. Do you have any questions so far?
No, I only have a comment,
Yes,
maybe
yes,
a
please.
concern.
Yes.
I'm wondering, we are saying that these stories are similar with the biblical account, yet I see very unique things. How do we handle this?
What do you mean?
Here, gods are fighting, killing. In this story, gods are killing each other, using their blood to create, and sometimes there are noses, breasts for mountains. But in the Genesis account, it is from elsewhere, not from the body parts of God.
Yeah, correct. Yes, it's
So
true.
how are they similar? Yeah.
There are some similar elements.
Oh, yeah, of course, because they create, okay.
There are some similar elements that we can find, but also there are many different issues, and they are more different than the similar, because some issues are very, how to say, not in accordance with the Bible. So that is why I would like us to read not only the description, but I would like us to read the text. And of course, it is not an easy reading, but when we do this, we can work with the original text, so we can see how it is, how those parallels are done. So what we can say about the parallels, are they really there or not? Okay, so let us continue.
But Prof.
Yes, please.
As we continue,
yes,
I still marvel at the way these creation stories at least bear some elements from the Bible, and yet they came before the Bible.
okay,
so will I be
yeah, continue, please.
Will I be wrong to say that even in those let me say primitive days, God is still shown some light to them to know, especially through revelation?
Yeah, so no, how I understand this, do you see the similar stories about the origin of life, about the creation? We can find not only in ancient Near East, we can find it almost everywhere in the world. And but of course, all of them are different, so they are not the same. And actually, liberal scholars just can explain it as people's fantasy when they try to imagine how it could be, and because all of them were religious, so they assign it to different gods. But as I see this situation, that actually, do you see, the story about creation, the real story about creation, was transmitted from one generation to another generation. And actually, Moses put it down, and we believe that he was inspired from God. That is why he put down the true story. But when the account of creation was transmitted from one generation to another generation, Satan was interested to twist this account and to make it different. So the main purpose, his purpose was to present God in a false light. So that God is not the loving God who created everything for people, but do you see in this epic and in many, many other epics, man is created in order to substitute gods in their hard work. So it looks like a man is a slave for gods, and gods exploit people for their own benefits. So they don't want to work themselves. That is why they create people, and people are working instead of them. Okay, so
Yeah, Prof.
yes.
Yeah, I want to add that as we saw during our course on the historical books, these stories from these nations close to Israel kind of elevated or praised their gods. So these Enuma Elish was to elevate Merodach or for the praise of Merodach. Then the account of creation in Genesis also elevated the God of heaven as the creator of all things. So we see these elements in all these stories.
Thank you. Yes, correct. But what is interesting, the Genesis account is very modest, because in Enuma Elish, we can see the whole tablet is about how different gods praise Marduk for yes, for everything that he has done, and so on, so forth. So let us continue. When Marduk heard the god's speech, he conceived a desire to accomplish clever things. He opened his mouth, addressing air. He counsels that which he had pondered in his heart. I will bring together blood to form bone. I will bring into being Lulu, whose name shall be man. I will create Lulu, man, on whom the toil of the gods will be laid, that they may rest. Okay, so do you see the gods? It's very interesting. Yes, so there is a hierarchy. There is a supreme god, and first supreme god was Tiamat and Apsu, but they were killed, and now Marduk became a supreme god, and all other gods also are supposed to work, to toil the land. Especially in Mesopotamia, they had to take care of canals. So now they want to make people, so that people will take care of canals and the gods may rest. So the purpose of the creation of man is completely different from the purpose of creating of man in the book of Genesis. But by the way, do you see everything is also distorted in this epic? Because this idea to toil the land, we can find even in the book of Genesis. In Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15, the Bible says that God placed Adam in the Garden of Eden in order to toil it, or two words are used, avad and shamar, in order to walk it and in order to keep it or protect it. So do you see the purpose of man in the creation story was also to walk and to protect. But actually, we will speak about this when we go to the exegesis, that it is a different idea behind that. And the idea of rest is also present in the Genesis account. But we will see it when we study the book of Genesis. But just to go a little bit ahead, I would like just let me open the accordance, and we will see the difference. We will see the difference here. So the man should toil the land so that gods may rest. And look how the creation is described in the book of Genesis. Genesis 2:15. So Vaikach, oh, sorry, you cannot see. I didn't project it for you. So Vaikach Adonai Elohim et Ha'adam So can you translate it? Vaikach. It's from lakach. Okay. And Adonai took, God Adonai took Adam, and pay attention to this. Pay attention to this word. Vayanichehu, vayanichehu. And do you see that this word comes from the root nuch? Actually, this verb means to. This is in Hifil. It means that he caused him to rest. So nuch means rest. So God Adonai took Adam and make him to rest, cause him to rest by Garden Eden. So do you see the difference? Do you see the difference?
Yes, Prof, we see.
Yes.
Okay, so the purpose of creation of man in the Enuma Elish was to toil, but the purpose of creation of man in Genesis is to a man should have rest. Okay, so
Rest.
do you see my screen well? Or is it a little bit dark? No?
No, we can see.
You can see. Okay,
It's
so
okay, Prof.
okay. Let us finish the creation of man. Answered as he addressed a word to him, expressing his commands on the resting of the gods. Let one brother of theirs be given up. Let him perish, that people may be fashioned. So they sacrificed one god in order to create all the humanity. Let the great gods assemble, and let the guilty one be given up, that they may be confirmed. Marduk assembled the great gods, using gracious directions as he gave his order. As he spoke, the gods heeded him. The king addressed a word to the Anunnaki. Anunnaki is actually, they are lesser gods. So there are several names for them. Anunnaki, one of them. Your former oath was true indeed. Now also tell me the solemn truth. Who is the one who instigated warfare? Who made Tiamat rebel and set battle in motion? Let him who instigated warfare be given up, that I may lay his punishment on him, but you sit and rest. The Igigi also the same for like lesser gods. The Igigi, the great gods, answered him, that is, Lugaldimerankia, the council of the gods, the Lord. Kinku is the one who instigated warfare, who made Tiamat rebel and set battle in motion. They bound him, holding him before Ea. They inflicted the penalty on him and severed his blood vessels. From his blood, he, Ea, created mankind, on whom he imposed the service of gods and set gods free. So again, the same purpose. After the wise Ea had created mankind and had imposed the service of gods upon them, the task is beyond comprehension, for Nudimmud performed the creation with the skill of Marduk. King Marduk divided the gods, all the Anunnaki, into upper and lower groups. He assigned 300 in the heavens to guard the decrees of Anu. Anu is the god of heaven, and appointed them as a god. Next, he arranged the organization of the netherworld. In heaven and netherworld, he stationed 600 gods. Okay, 6 is also very important because do you see they have the system based, mathematical system based on 6 in Babylon. So that is why maybe 6 is like a perfect number for them. Okay, now, so the last one, it is just like a comparison between the book of Genesis and the book of, not the book, Enuma Elish epic. So what we can say, so what is the common between these two stories? Divine spirit and cosmic matter are coexisting and eternal. So we can say almost the same, yeah. Primeval house, Tiamat enveloped the darkness, and the earth is desolate, waste with darkness covering the deep. And deep is Tehom. And of course, there are many speculation about how to translate this Tehom and how to translate Tohu Vavohu. But some find this parallel between Tehom and Tiamat. So that this is like allusion to Tiamat. The creation of the firmament, and we have the creation of the firmament in both cases by dividing the creation of the dry land and also the creation of the dry land, the creation of the luminaries and also the creation of the luminaries. And after that, the creation of man. We also have the creation of man, and gods rest and celebrate. And we see the same idea, God rests and sanctifies the seventh day. So do you see there are some parallels between these two accounts, but we cannot say that those parallels are very, very close. And there are some distinctions in these two accounts. And the most critical distinctions, as I see, is how the gods are presented. So the gods are presented as not as a all-powerful gods, as you said, or somebody said, yes, so that they can die, they are not eternal. It seems to me Pastor Abioma said. And gods are not interested in man, so they do not create the world for man, but they create everything for themselves. And when we speak about how the man was created, so the man was created in Enuma Elish from the bad king, from the bad kingu. So it looks like from the blood of the bad king, they created mankind. But when we see the account of Genesis, we can see that a man was created good, completely good, not bad. And the idea of rest is also different in both accounts. So they just celebrate, but the purpose of God's rest is a little bit different. Okay, so do you want to add anything else to this epic?
I think it is sufficient.
Sufficient. Okay, so now I would suggest that we have a break. So let us have 10 minutes break, and after that we will continue with the Atrahasis epic and Gilgamesh epic. Okay? So let us have 10 minutes break, and I also need to plug in my computer because my battery is low. Okay?
Okay, Prof.
Okay, Prof. Thank you.
As Pastor Aladosu said, the epic is very old, but we do not know exactly when it was composed. But presumably it is younger than some other epics, like, for example, Gilgamesh epic. Some scholars say is older than Atrahasis epic. So the main characters are actually the same. Enlil is an ancient Mesopotamian god associated with wind, air, and earth. And Anu is the god of sky, god of heaven. Let's continue. Nusku is a vizier of the god Enlil, and he just helps him communicate with other gods. Mami, or Nintu, is the goddess, and she is the one who was involved in the creation of humankind. And Enki, the same god as Ea, and he is the one who actually saved or helped Atrahasis to be saved. So the plot is very, very simple. I will not read, I will just tell you. So Enlil was a kind of counselor of gods, or he was not a supreme god, but one of the higher gods. And Igigu are the younger gods or smaller gods. And smaller gods were created in order to maintain the order and to dig the canals. And one day they rebelled against this, and they wanted to change their destiny. So after that, Enlil, he was very, very upset. So he was even weeping. And after that, he said that he has to consult some other gods who are more, who are supreme gods. So they consult with Anu, and they decided to make people in order to substitute the work of the gods. So they called Mami, the mother goddess, and asked her to create man. In the beginning, she objects that task and says that it is beyond her ability, and he requests Enki to help her. So they tried to do this, and they really sacrificed one god. So they killed one of the gods in order to create from him people. So they mixed together blood of the flesh of the god and the clay, and they created people. But what is interesting, they created not only one person, but they created 7 men and 7 women. And after that, the purpose of the people was to toil the land and to dig the canals. But the same idea that we can find in some other epics, that when people started to multiply, they started to be very noisy. And Enlil one day decided to reduce the population of people somehow. So he sent, first he sent some plagues to reduce the population, famine, but Enki always helped people to survive. He helped Atrahasis, and Atrahasis told other people. So one day, all people, all gods, all gods decided to send a flood. And all gods, including Enki, swore that they will destroy people. So Enki decided to help people, and he had a plan of his own. He reveals something to the future to Atrahasis, and he told that he will be preserved in a boat. And upon his inquiry, he told the dimension of the boat that he is supposed to do. And Atrahasis should give a 4th reason why he is doing the boat to his neighbors. And flood starts. After flood starts, we can see that flood continued 7 days. And after the flood, Atrahasis came out of the boat and sacrificed and brought sacrifice to gods. And all gods for 7 days, they were very hungry, so they very eagerly ate this sacrifice. And after that, they repent, or they regret that they destroyed the mankind. And in the end, Enki and Ninuntu rearrange the lot of mankind so that in future their numbers will be controlled by infant mortality and other forms of sudden death. At the end of the composition is a hymn of praise, probably to Enki, and so on and so forth. So now let us come to the text, and let us consider some details in the text of this epic. Air made ready to speak. This is how man was created, or not only man, but not only one man, but 7 men they created, and 7 women. Air made ready to speak and said to the gods, his brothers, what calumny do we lay to their charge? Their forced labor was heavy, their misery too much. So Air, or Enki, tries to defend other gods because their labor and their work is too much. Every day the outcry was loud. We could hear the clamor. Belet Ili, the midwife, is present. Let her create then a human, a man. Let him bear the yoke. Let him bear the yoke. So again, we can see the same idea. So man is created in order to substitute gods and to make the destiny of gods easier, so that the gods could rest and man could walk instead of gods. On the first, this is the process how they created man. On the first 7th and the 15th days of the month, he established a purification, a bath. So they slaughtered Au-Ilu, so this is one of the lesser gods, who had the inspiration in the assembly, and Nintu, the same as Mamo, mixed clay with his flesh and blood. That same god and man were thoroughly mixed in the clay. For the rest of the time, they would hear the drum. From the flesh of the god, the spirit remained. It would make the living now its sign. Lest he be allowed to be forgotten, the spirit remained. After the Pastor Roldos, don't worry about that. We understand you very well, so don't worry, we will take over. But thank you for your work. You did a very nice job. Where did we stop? For the rest, yes. Lest he be allowed to be forgotten, the spirit remained. After she had mixed the clay, she summoned Anuna, the great gods, the Gigi, the great gods spat upon the clay. So it's also a very interesting procedure. So that they spit upon the clay. And after that, yes, and after that, people were created. But as I said, as we said already, people became very, very noisy. So Enlil was not able to sleep well, and they decided to destroy people. And he tried to destroy it with many, many different ways, like famine, drought, some other issues. But nothing worked out because Enki helped people every time. So they one day he decided to make a flood. And after that, Ea told Atrahasis what he should do. Atrahasis made ready to speak, and he said to his Lord, "Make me know the meaning of the dream. Let me know that I may look out for its consequences." Enki made ready to speak and said to his servant, "You might say, am I to be looking out while in the bedroom? Do you pay attention to message that I speak for you? Wall, listen to me. Read, wall, pay attention to all my words. Flee this house. Build a boat, forsake possessions, and save life." And after that, he gave the dimensions of the boat. The boat which you build should be equal and roof her over like the depth, so that the sun shall not see inside her. Let her be roofed over fore and aft. The gear should be very strong. The pitch should be firm, and so give the boat strength. I will shower down upon you later. Atrahasis received the command. He assembled the elders as his gate. Atrahasis made ready to speak and said to the elders, "My God does not agree with your God. Enki and Enlil are constantly angry with each other. They have expelled me from the land. Since I have always reverenced Enki, he told me this: I cannot live in your land, nor can I set my feet on the earth of Enlil. I will dwell with my God in the depth." So do you see what is interesting here? Atrahasis was told about the flood, but he doesn't want to save anybody else. He saves only himself. And he just told a false reason why he is building a boat. And all other people were destroyed, but Atrahasis was saved. So he even made a feast for them. And after that, he went to the boat. Now, then let there be a third woman. Oh yes, so he came to the boat. He he actually was saved. And this is what happened after the flood. So after the flood, the gods were not happy because people were destroyed. So they didn't want to do it anymore. But they wanted to somehow limit the population of the people. So they made up some rules how it should be after the flood. Now then, let there be a third woman among the people. Among the people are the woman who has born and the woman who has not born. So it means, so how they want to limit the population of the people now, there will be some women who can, who are fertile, who can bear the children, and those who cannot do this. Let there be also among the people the Pasiti, the kind of she demon, nobody knows what it is. Let her snatch the baby from the lap who bore it, and establish high priestess and priestess. Let them be taboo, and so cut down childbirth. So they want somehow to change the number of people in the world. So what is interesting in this Atrahasis epic is that it combines two stories, the story of the creation of man and the story of the flood, and they are combined together. So the same as in Genesis, because other stories are just a story either about creation or like Gilgamesh epic about the flood, but not about creation. But in this story we have both this and the story of flood and story of creation. And what we can say about the parallels with the Bible, can we find anything that is parallel to the biblical account?
The building of the ark,
Okay, yes.
though the dimensions are different, but the building of the ark is...
by the way,
the idea of...
there are many parallels with Gilgamesh epic.
Yes.
So building of the ark, yes. What else? The flood actually lasted only 7 days in Atrahasis epic, not 1 year as in the epic of Genesis account. Anything else, Pastor Bioma? Or do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think the sacrifice after the flood.
Yes, after the flood. So it is repeated in every epic. In Gilgamesh epic, we have the same.
Yeah.
In Atrahasis epic, the same. And the
So,
idea of God's repentance. So gods, after they have a flood,
yeah,
so they were not happy that people were destroyed, people were killed. But do you see what is the difference?
Yeah, it's true.
So now the destruction of the people is done. Why? Why did God decide to destroy the people, to kill the people? Because of the noise.
Well, in the account of but in the account of Genesis, their wickedness against themselves. But
Yes.
in this epic, their noise disturbing the gods.
So it is not wickedness of the people, but it is just the noise or something like that.
The noise they're making, yeah. So God also acted selfishly.
And Atrahasis also acted selfishly. He didn't want to save
selfishly.
everybody else, but he just wanted to save
Everybody else.
himself.
It's
And
true.
all other population just was destroyed. And gods in this
Prophet.
epic are also portrayed as those who depend upon people. Because
Yes.
do you see Atrahasis, 7 days, he was just, was not able to do anything because of the flood. And the gods became hungry. So when he offered a sacrifice, they immediately, like flies, came to the sacrifice because they were hungry. So they need people. It looks like God in this epic need people to survive. So God depend upon people, but not vice versa. And also what we can see, yes.
In this epic, if Atrahas is the one that survives, then how is the population after the flood propagated
he took
again?
his family. Yeah, he took his family with him. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And it seems to me not, I already mixed up all these epics. It seems to me not only family, but maybe Pastor Oladoso can help me. It seems to me he took some craftsmen as well with himself. So he said but I'm not remember now. I don't remember now. And here in those epics, we can see how people understood gods, how they perceive gods. So gods are very weak. Gods are those who don't have agreement among themselves. So they quarrel with each other, and so on and so forth. And do you see the reason? And the same reason, not the same reason, but the epic Pastor Nathan is preparing for us. In that epic, we also can see that God created some people with defectiveness, with some defects, like people who cannot do some kind of job. So here we also can see that people, the gods, do something that people could have some problems, like with those women who are fertile, who are not fertile, and so on and so forth. So gods are responsible for this. They do something to reduce the population of the people. Yes, Pastor Nathan, you wanted to say something? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to observe that you are not mixed up, but the two epics are almost similar and they share quite a bit.
Yes, many features. So sometimes
yeah, many
it's difficult
features.
to remember what is going on in which epic.
Sure.
So how I understand, most probably Atrahasis epic is another version of the Gilgamesh epic. So not the whole epic of Gilgamesh, but this part about Utnapishtim and about the story of the flood. So we really can see many parallels between biblical account and Atrahasis epic, but also we can see a lot of differences. And those differences are very crucial because they present God in a different light. So God is not a loving God. So gods here are very capricious. So they cannot tolerate the noise of the people, and so on and so forth. Okay, anything else you would like to add? Okay, if not, Pastor Gamble, your turn, and you will tell us about Gilgamesh epic. Pastor Gemba, are you here?
Let me call him, probably.
Or maybe,
Yeah.
Pastor Nathan, you can start your part and Pastor Gemba will come later on.
Okay. It's fine. No problem. I may not share my screen because I just did notes, but I'm sure I can upload later for the class to see exactly what.
Or we can
I
open
have.
the text of the epic, because this epic is very short. It is not very long.
Yeah, if you can open from your side, I'll appreciate it.
Yes, I will try
Because
to do this.
I did the notes in a different gadget,
Okay, no problem.
but
Just
from the
yes,
one I'm
you can
using
start
for
and I will try to open it for
this class. Okay. Yeah. It is an interesting one, and it is the creation as was seen by the Sumerians, and they saw it as an act of skilled craftsmanship. And then in this myth of Enki, the patron of all arts and crafts, the god of the sweet fertilizing waters of the deep, wisdom, magic is challenged to a creature making contest by Ninma, another name for Ninsag. But some people say it's not the same story, although some say it is the same story of Ninha and Enki. And so Enki is challenged here in a creation context, and everything starts in the old days. In the old days, as you can see up there, in the old days, when the gods were forced to work hard, excavating irrigation canals, the senior gods did the digging while the younger carried the baskets of earth, a heavy task indeed. Then to relieve the gods of their workload, urged by the primeval mother, Namhu, the sea, Enki, the creator of forms, aided Namhu, and Ninma created the first humans. The moment humankind was created, a bond between humans and the gods was sealed to last forever. And so thus far, after the task of creating human beings had been completed, Enki held a feast to celebrate the newfound leisure of the gods. Down there somewhere, you will see where the gods were drunk as they were celebrating. It's about 70s, thereabout. Now before he devised.
Yeah, so this is the already contest.
Yeah. There's a verse where they drank too
and
much.
Ninma drank beer.
Yes, they drank
elated,
beer.
And then Ninma said to Enki, man's body can be either good or bad. And whether I make a fate good or bad depends on my will.
Exactly. And Ninma set up to create the first humans by herself alone, and perhaps because of the limited assistance she had, the beings created were creatures with serious defects. Mm-hmm. And we see there were 6 days of creation there of these creatures with with serious defects. Yet despite their handicaps, Enki was able to find a useful role for each of them. For every defect, Enki was able to find a useful role. Some, he said, they'll be servants of the kingdom and the likes. And so when Ninma made a man unable to stretch out his hands and grasp things, Enki made him a servant of the king because he would not be able to steal. The second man, who turned out to be blind, Enki gave him the gift of making music so that he could serve the king. The third being created belongs to the broken text, so he could not be identified. The fourth creation was a man who could not hold his semen, and Enki was able to cure him by giving him purifying bath. The fifth creature was barren woman, and she was put in a harem. The sixth being was a sexless creature who was also put at the service of the king. So having outdone Nimna, Enki had a challenge, had to challenge her and produce unfortunate beings to test her abilities. The first creature was a woman with difficulties in giving birth. Nimna's power were not sufficient to reverse her fate. The second being was an old man who suffered from heart, lungs, and bowels, and was so afflicted that he could not speak up or understand the great goddess. Frustrated, Nimna complained that he was neither alive nor dead, so he could do nothing to improve his condition. Thus, part of humanity from this day on may come to the world with defects, having to endure such suffering, and the only way to regeneration is to pray for gods. Then the myth finishes with the praise of Enki. Down there, you'll see Enki being praised. So that is the short description of the myth. Let me now go to the comparison with the biblical account. One thing I saw there that is related to Genesis chapter 1, the creation of man, is that man was created with clay. Nimna took clay from the top of Abzu and formed man. I think that is one of the things that we find in Genesis that I saw that was related, that God took the dust of the earth and he formed man. Another aspect I saw that is relating there is the issue of man is created and designated a role. In Genesis, we see when God created man, he said, let him have dominion. He gave him a role to play, dominion over the other animals and the earth. And also he put them in the garden to care for it. So I see even this, if these men were created with defects, I could see Enki designating some roles to them, servant of the kingdom and the likes. So that is the second thing I saw there. And then I also saw the aspect of, can I say the two creation accounts for lack of words? Like that there is double kind of creation. You see like Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. And here I see there was creation by the name is Nimna. And then after the creation by Nimna, Enki was also got into the challenge of creation. And this second creation, there is an issue of supremacy where unlike the first creation, the defects were able to be fixed. But in the second one, it was difficult to be fixed. So I see here also the issue of supremacy, that what the supreme God has made, it is not easy for man to match or even make the same kind of. So those are the major three aspects I saw. And yet also there is an issue number 4 of creation order. When you see the creation of these men with the defects, there is the first day, not the first day, but the first man, day 1, yes, days are there, day 1 to day 6. These men with defects are created in different days. So I see that kind of order of creation, which I can relate also with Genesis. There was order in the days of creation. I think those are the 4 main points that I saw as relating to the book of Genesis. Now I can leave it open for any inputs or discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, so anything else would you like to add? So here, probably what we can see, the humanity already at that time, there was a big question about who is, so why are some people born with with defects? So why are they defective? And who is responsible for that? And this is probably a big issue. It has been already a big issue at that time. It was already the big issue at that time. Okay, okay. Anybody else, or that's all for this Enki and Nimna? And again, so do you see how God are presented here? So gods are they create people, handicapped people, only because of the contest between them. So do you see the gods are again some capricious gods? They do not value people very much, so they can make people with sufferings, and gods are responsible for sufferings in this world.
Yeah, and I think they also create people to relieve them from labor, because
yes, the same. So the same idea happens everywhere. So people are needed in order to release gods from hard labor. Okay, so now maybe I can ask Pastor Gembo, are you with us?
Yes, bro. I'm with you, Prof.
Okay, so maybe I can ask you to start your presentation on Gilgamesh epic.
Okay. I thought you wanted me to comment, but...
Oh yeah, if you want to make a comment, please do it.
No, I didn't read anything about that. Otherwise, I found a lot of material about Gilgamesh, and some of it is very confusing, like I said before. I found out that the Epic of Gilgamesh is actually a poem, a Babylonian poem, found in the mountains of Tigro-Euphrates region. Some sources I consulted say there were about 12 tablets about the same, each having about 300 lines. And this poem is about a young hero or a ruler called Gilgamesh. He originally was associated with a historian personage whom the Sumerian king Lis assigns the first dynasty of Uruk, and allowing him to reign for 126 years. So this Gilgamesh is having a friend. This friend is called, is also a young man called Enkidu. And Enkidu is portrayed to be a gay who was his friend. He was favored with animal strength, that is Enkidu, and having many enterprise or high spirits, but is suddenly struck down with a fatal sickness. Enkidu thus is an example of a hero who achieves fame, but dies early and miserably. So Gilgamesh loses self-satisfaction and becomes a raging, questioning Achilles, but suffers no tragic or glorious end. He returns quietly home, though defeated in his quest for a better life. The use of simile in the poem shows subjectivity and discreteness to one another. The god Shamash opposes God Enlil and complains about punishing Enkidu while sparing Gilgamesh as unjust. That action was unjust, according to this god Enlil. So the gods take greater interest in Gilgamesh than his friend because he's a king and therefore part of God, of a god. Enkidu provides joy in his love. He's introduced to food, clothing, and strong drink. And this contributes to his astonishing week-long affair with a prostitute from Uruk, who is as immoderate in eating as in love. He begets 50 sons by 50 daughters of Thespius in one night. The passage from the seventh tablet, Enkidu wakes up before dawn and mourns before the sun god, cursing the hunter and the harlot. Enkidu is contrasting his former life in the wilderness with the present city life. The latter represents the allegory of the natural man tempted by a woman to have a knowledge which results in unhappiness, the motive of the fall of man. And so as this thing continues, we discover that there is a crossing of an impassable mountain range guarded by supernatural borders, and having talked the divine boatman into ferrying him across the sea of death to at the other end of the Ashel, confronts the immortal man with his quest. And the story goes on. So I reached a point when in my reading that it was a little bit confusing. It has a lot of material which I don't know whether to link to the main one or to go to the ones that are being commented about by scholars. I actually downloaded up to about 12 different sources about this thing called Gilgamesh Epic. So I reached there before we began class.
Okay, do you want to say anything more?
Any
No,
comparison with the biblical account? What did you find that is related to maybe the creation story?
Not creation, the story of flood. So the most interesting part is the story of the flood, because in Gilgamesh epic we don't have a creation story, and nothing about creation.
Yeah,
but it is about the flood.
I found this thing they were talking about the persuasion of the boatman to ferry him across the sea of death. And then the mountain that there was some kind of, they wanted some kind of supernatural power to be used to pass the impassable mountain. So I associate this with the biblical account of flood because the ark was on a mountain, and the boat ferrying this man is also moving on water, kind of to rescue this man from extinction. So that bit that I reached, it's what I discovered could connect us to the biblical account of
after
flood.
that, this guy, the ferryman, brought him to Utnapishtim. And Utnapishtim is actually the one who survived the flood. And Utnapishtim tells the story about the flood. And the story has many parallels with the biblical account, many parallels. So just I want to add something to what Pastor Elijah said. By the way, thank you, Pastor Elijah, for your work. The epic is really very big, and to read it all, so probably it's not good for us. I mean, it doesn't help us very much, because it is just like a story about Gilgamesh, about his, it's like an odyssey when he is going from one place to another, make some acts, heroic acts, and so on and so forth. So the main idea of epic is that Gilgamesh, when his friend Enkidu was killed or just died, he thought about his destiny, and he wanted to find eternal life. So all his trips or all his adventures after that is just a search for a remedy, or search for something that can help him to avoid the death. So let me project my presentation. Yeah, I will just skip some slides because the plot is not interesting for us. So but here we can find some very interesting ideas. For example, when Gilgamesh speaks to one goddess, she told him, when the gods created man, can you see it? Yes. When the God creates its man, they allotted them, when the gods created man, they allotted to him death, but life they retained in their own keeping. As for you, Gilgamesh, fill your belly with good things, day and night, night and day. Dance and be merry, feast and rejoice. Let your clothes be fresh, bathe yourself in water, cherish the little child that holds your hand, and make your wife happy in your embrace. For this too is the lot of man. So this is a very interesting statement. Sometimes people say that it has some parallels with the book of Ecclesiastes, because Ecclesiastes says something similar. So rejoice, be happy, because do you see, one day you will die. So it is the same idea. And what is interesting, and it is not as in the Bible, because in the Bible we can see that God promises eternal life to the people, but here there is no eternal life, so you have to die. So men are allotted to death. So everybody should die. There is no escape from death. And Gilgamesh doesn't stop. He wants to find. Yes.
Gilgamesh was wishing.
Pardon?
Gilgamesh wished that he would have an eternal life.
Yes, he wants.
Gilgamesh,
he doesn't want to die. That is why he is looking for something that helps him to become alive, to live eternally. And when they were traveling, one day they saw the plant growing. Although it pricked him, he took it in his hands. Then he cut the heavy stones from his feet, and the sea carried him and threw him on the shore. Gilgamesh said to Urshanabi, this is the ferryman, come here and see this marvelous plant. By its virtue, a man may win back all his former strength. I will take it to Uruk of the strong walls. There I will give it to the old man to eat. Its name shall be The Old Men Are Young Again. And at last I shall eat it myself and have back all my lost youth. So do you see, this is the desire of Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh thought that he already found this flower of eternal life. So Gilgamesh returned by the gates through which he had come. Gilgamesh and Urshanabi went together. They traveled there 20 leagues, and then they broke their fast. After 30 leagues, they stopped for the night. Gilgamesh saw a well of cool water, and he went down and bathed. But deep in the pool, deep in the pool, there was lying a serpent, and we can find also some parallels with the biblical account. And the serpent sensed the sweetness of the flower. It rose out of the water and snatched it away, and immediately it sloughed its skin and returned to the well. Then Gilgamesh sat down and wept. So do you see, Gilgamesh tried to find this eternal life, and he thought that he almost found it, and finally the serpent took it away, so there was no flower anymore. And it is a kind of a parallel with the book of Genesis chapter 3. And finally Gilgamesh came to Utnapishtim. And Utnapishtim, why he is interested in Utnapishtim? Because Utnapishtim, Gilgamesh was told that this man, Utnapishtim, was just a mortal man, but he became immortal. So God made him immortal. And now we have a story of Utnapishtim. So he found Utnapishtim, and Utnapishtim told him his story. And the story is very, very similar. So there were many people on the earth. They were very noisy, and Enlil was not happy. So he decided to kill, to destroy the mankind. And good god Ea, or Enki, the same name, so decided to help people. But in this story, and there are some similarities with the story of Atrahasis, Ea or Enki didn't tell Utnapishtim, didn't warn directly Utnapishtim, but he told the story to the reed house, to the reed of the house. So the house was made of reed, so he told the story to the reed, and those reed told this story to Utnapishtim. So reed house, wall, or wall hearken, reed house, wall reflect, O man of Shurupak, son of Ubara Tutu, tear down your house and build a boat, abandon possessions and look for life, despise worldly goods and save your soul alive. So it's very similar to Atrahasis Epis. There are the measurements of the bark, as you shall build her. So the measurements. And after that, Utnapishtim asked, behold, what you have commanded, I will honor you and perform. But how shall I answer the people of the city, the elders? Then Ea opened his mouth and said to me, his servant, tell them this, I have learned that Enlil is wrathful against me. I dare no longer walk in his land, nor live in his city. So this is the same as in the Atrahasis epic. I will go down to the gulf to dwell with Ea, my lord. But on you he will rain down abundance, rare fish and shy wild fowl, a rich harvest tide. In the evening the rider of the storm will bring you wheat in torrents. So do you see again Utnapishtim just told a lie to other people so that they will be okay, and he just want to go away from the wrath of Enlil. And after that he loaded everything, gold and all his things, and his family loaded in the boat, and the storm started. Almost the same, 6 days and 6 nights, the winds blew, the same as in Atrahasis epic, and on the 7th day the flood finished. And he saw that all mankind was turned to clay. The surface of the sea stretched as flat as a rooftop. I opened a hatch, and then a light fell on my face. Then I bowed low, I sat down, and I wept, and tears streamed down my face. Okay. And now it's also some comparison, we can make some comparison with the Genesis account. So he is waiting for the land to become dry. And he sent, when the seventh day dawned, I loosed a dove and let her go. She flew away, but finding no resting place, she returned. Then I loosed a swallow, and she flew away, but finding no resting place, she returned. I loosed a raven. She saw that the waters had retreated. She ate, she flew around, she caught, and she did not come back. So do you see, very similar to the story of Genesis, or the book of Genesis, but the only difference is, it seems to me, in the book of Genesis, the order is different. The raven was sent first, and the dove was sent away last. Yes, am I correct?
Yeah, yeah. Like that.
And after that, he brought a sacrifice, and all gods were happy that he offered a sacrifice, except Enlil. Because Enlil, when he heard about this, that one person survived, he was very angry. And other gods, for example, Ea, who is the widest of gods, he reprimanded Enlil, and he says, lay upon the sinner his sin, lay upon the transgressor his transgression. Punish him a little when he breaks loose. Do not drive him too hard, or he perishes. Would that a lion had ravaged mankind rather than the flood. Would that a wolf had ravaged mankind rather than the flood, or famine rather than the flood, or pestilence. It was not I that revealed the secret of the gods. The wise man learned it in a dream. Now take your counsel with what shall be done with him. And after that, Enlil made Utnapishtim immortal. So he granted him immortality. So this is the story of the flood, and in the Gilgamesh epic. So what is also interesting in the story, that Gilgamesh was not able to find a secret of eternal life. So he died in the end of the story. And the story is very sad, actually. Okay, so also we have some parallels with the not creation story, with the flood story. But again, the same that was said about Atrahasis epic, we can say about Gilgamesh epic and about Utnapishtim. So everything is presented in a different way, and we cannot say that biblical account is based upon this account, because everything is distorted in this account of the flood. Do you want to add anything else?
Hello, sir. Can we say that the authors of the Bible, those who wrote the Bible, borrowed some ideas from these ancient stories, or it's a coincidence that there are some parallels?
No, I don't think that the biblical stories were borrowed from ancient Near East stories. But as I told you, these stories about the flood, the story about the creation, you can find almost in every country, in every nation.
Yeah.
I'm more than sure that in Africa, you also have some stories about the origin of the mankind. Do you have or not?
Yes,
we
have
have
a lot of.
You have, yes.
We have.
So as I believe, the knowledge about the creation and knowledge about the flood was spread about all people. So all people knew it. But in a biblical account, we can be sure that it is a true story about the creation, about the flood. But all other stories were changed when they were transmitted from one generation to another. And because of those changes,
in 17 hours,
we have the stories that are completely different, not completely different. They have some similarities to the biblical account, but they are not they're not the same. So they have different ideas. And especially what is important,
Professor,
they have different presentation of God. Yes, please, Pastor Nicholas.
yeah, thank you, Prof. In the light of the fact that God was commanding the children of Israel not to be yoked with the neighboring tribes, the intention that they will lead them away from the correct line, could it be also true that the biblical account, as per the divine intention, was to give the accurate record, I would put it that way, from the distorted already? In other words, could someone be right to say it is in a way a response to already the established narratives that are not true to the fact as per the original?
Yes, yes, yes. So I think that God wanted to preserve this true story about creation, about the flood, through Moses and through the Israelites.
Yes, yes, because in my study in the Egyptian pantheon and whatever, the cosmogony, that conclusion came from some scholars that yes, that the Genesis account is a response.
Oh, it's a response to
yes, to the Greek description and the Greek misrepresentation of these facts.
Okay. So, by the way, Pastor Nicholas, were you able to find much material on Egyptian creation story?
Prof, can I say something?
Yes, it was well debated in combing a few ideas, because there is no specific epic that I was able, but there is a variety that also competes, depending on the sanctuary.
So, can you present it tomorrow?
Yes, yes, Prof, I would do that.
So, Pastor,
thank you.
Pastor Ogembo?
Yes, I wanted to make a comment. I don't know how true it can be, but you can correct me. Because we know that from biblical records that it is Moses who wrote the book of Genesis, Job, and the 5 books and Job. And that Moses is a descendant of Abraham. And if there's a claim from these ancient Near East stories that they appear to have been written before the time of the Bible, that claim may be true, but that does not mean that those stories, because they were written before, are actually more factual, or that they lent the Bible record any credence, because God is one. Like you said before, that it is true that all peoples had knowledge about creation and the flood, but God chose to preserve this information and specifically gave it to a people, even sometimes dictating. When Moses was writing the law, he actually dictated. So when we find the law of Hammurabi, for example, even if it is ancient, for us, people of faith, we do not have to worry about that, that maybe this one copied from this other one, because we have a God who can even confirm, even now, if he wanted to, which is which. So for me, I'm consoled of his assurance to his people. And I only read these stories to find what they were saying and some similarities between them and the biblical account. But I'm dependent on that which God reveals in his word and his prophets, rather than these other many stories that may appear, even if they're ancient than the Bible. I don't know whether that my opinion may be wayward or is consistent.
Yes, correct. I agree with you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your comment. So now I also would like to ask Pastor Kajura, were you able to find much information about Ugaritic creation story? Because in Ugarit, we cannot find precisely creation story, but some scholars argue that some of the epics about Baal could be presented as a creation story, especially the Baal battle or fight with Yam and Mot, and the way how he built his palace. And some scholars say, no, it is not a creation story. So what do you think about, what can you, did you find information?
Yeah, in fact, the information is not all that much.
Yes, it's true, it's true.
But just as you said, it is Lauren Fisher who tries to at least to bring something solid in the order actually you've just mentioned. Of course, it is about chaotic. This Ugaritic is about chaos, a lot of wars. But the most prevalent one is that one when Baal and Yom, you know.
Yam, sea.
Yam,
is
yes.
Yeah.
Yam. And when Baal emerges the winner, then he sets that standard of establishing the, actually, Richard, this Clifford, the writer, says that out of that.
Okay, Pastor Kajura, can you present it tomorrow?
Okay, I will.
Okay, so this is for tomorrow. We will have two presentations for tomorrow. I would like to thank all of you, and I think it is much better when we do it together, when we collaborate, than if we just have lectures and that's all. So that is why I am very thankful to you, and I really appreciate the job that you have done today when you prepared for the class. And for tomorrow, I want to give you one more assignment. And tomorrow we will speak about framework theory. So it was my purpose to, in the beginning, to speak with you about ancient Near East accounts, because some of the elements of this ancient Near East accounts you can find in the arguments of some other scholars. And tomorrow we will speak about the framework theory. So the framework theory, it is actually not about evolution and not about, but it is about creation. So how can we understand especially the first and the second chapters of the book of Genesis? And the framework theory was elaborated by several scholars. Mostly we can find like 4 scholars, but more than 4 scholars are engaged in this theory. This is Meredith Klein, Bruce Waltke, and John Walton, and Henry Blocher, or Blocher. I don't know how to pronounce his name correct. So I would like you also to read, let me show it to you. So this article. So please start with this article. Bruce Waltke, The Literary Genre of Genesis Chapter 1. So it's not a long article, it is just like several pages, and it is easy to read. It is easy to read. And I'm sure that it is here. Oh yeah, it's not in the bibliography. So one more article. Okay, let me do like this. I will send it to all of you by email. I will send all the documents for tomorrow reading. One more article, and this article is more difficult to read because it is more sophisticated. Let me find it. Yes, this is the one. So it was published somewhere, but I found it on internet as a document. So try to understand this article. Space and time in the Genesis. So I will show it to you. Space and time in the Genesis cosmogony. So it was written by Meredith Klein. And it was, I believe it is like a presentation somewhere. As I told you, this is more difficult to read, this article, but try to understand, because this is like a primary source on this theory, and everything started maybe from this article, or even earlier, I don't know. Yeah, maybe earlier. And also there is another author. He is also considered as an adherent to the framework theory, and this is John Walton. John Walton is very, very famous author and very prolific author, and he wrote the book. Actually, he doesn't say that he stands on this position, but when you read his book, you will see that many of this framework theory is related to his ideas. So please start with Bruce Waltke, and after that read John Walton, Meredith Klein, and after that this book is big one. So if previous ones are just short articles, this one is a little bit longer, but I don't want you to read the entire book, the whole book. Just try to understand what he's speaking about. Okay, John Walton. And the last...
You said you will send the article?
I will send everything to you by email.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Yes, and the last one is Henry Blocher or Blocher, In the Beginning, the opening chapters of Genesis. So these four people, but actually more than 4 people, but these are like influential people who wrote much about this framework theory and how to understand the first chapter of the book of Genesis. Okay. So I will send it immediately after the end of our class. I will send it immediately to you.
Hello, Prof.
Yes.
Just for clarity.
Yes.
Are these assignments supposed to be uploaded in the module, or they are just for the class, like the ones we did today, so that we know when we are preparing, we may know how to go about it?
Not to be uploaded, just like you did today.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the only thing I would like to, we can also do like this, if you don't mind. So we can assign each article or each book or each piece to different people, people. And in this case, I would like to ask you just to prepare a short presentation, not very big presentation. And in this presentation, you can just show the main ideas of the author.
Because that would be ideal. Instead of reading 4 books, we may be divided. Which one do I take? Which one do I leave? But if you divide among us, then concentration becomes easier on one and
what do you think about it?
The points.
So in this case, I may ask you to choose what kind of who would like to read the article by Bruce Waltke. It's a short one. It is just like 10 pages.
I'm ready to read that one. Can I read it?
Okay, good. So Pastor Agembo, Bruce Waltke. Meredith Klein. It is more complicated. It is not long. It is short one, but he speaks in a like sophisticated language, so maybe you need to read it several times before you understand what he's going to say.
Okay, bro.
Who?
Which one? That one of space and the time?
Yes, Pastor Kajura.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have books. So we have 2 articles, now we have books. And maybe we can assign 2 people for each book. Like, for example, Pastor Aladosu and Pastor Obioma. You can read one book. Which book you would like to work on? Walton or Blocher?
Yeah, by Walton.
Walton. Okay. So Pastor Obioma and Pastor Oladosu will read a book by Walton, and Pastor Nicholas and Pastor Nathan, can you share together the book of Blocher? I don't know how to say it correct. Okay? Blocher, maybe. But he is French, so I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly. So if he's French, so probably Blocher. But okay. Okay, so Pastor Nicholas and Pastor Nathan.
Yes, Prof.
Okay.
Yes, Prof.
Okay. So I'm sending all the books to all of you.
Yes.
But you will choose the one that you will work on. Okay.
What's the title for Blocher, so that when I see it, I know it is this one. The title for.
In the beginning.
Yes, Blocher, in the beginning, the opening chapters of Genesis.
Okay. Thank you, Prof.
Yes.
Professor.
Yes.
Those of us who are doing books, what is the approach? Do we segment it and read one person from one portion to another, or?
Okay. So do you see when you have a book? Yeah, it's very difficult. You can do it like this, yes, as you said. So you can divide it on several portions, and somebody will present one idea, somebody will present like the idea from another portion of the book. But what I would like you to do, to have in the end like a holistic picture of the worldview of this author.
Okay.
Okay.
Then that would mean that it's good to go through it, yes.
I don't want you to read from cover to cover it, but just try to read it diagonally in order to understand what is his main idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
thank you for the collaboration. Okay, so now I am sending to you the books, and we can pray and we can be dismissed for today. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, so let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, thank you very much for this day and for this opportunity for us to be together again and to study your word and to study different other accounts of creation that were distorted by people and most probably also by Satan, who wanted to present you in a wrong light so that people would be afraid of you, that people would understand you as a capricious God, not the God who loves us and who supports us. So our dear Lord, we come to you right now and we want to thank you for being a wonderful God, the God who wants to save, not the God who wants to kill or to perish others. So we would like to praise your holy name for this. And please help us to continue to study this important subject and to understand all the issues about the creation and to understand how we can speak to other people and persuade them in a right picture of you, the God who loves us, who made everything for us, and who sent his only begotten Son in order to save us. Our dear Lord, I would like to ask special blessings upon all members of this class. So please be with us and help us. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.